Welcome to Talking with the Source, where we bring on well-known and local researchers from around the world to share their experiences and evidence.
Who knows that the moon missions were fake?
As soon as I said, I'll meet you, and she said, oh, darn it, I gotta check the door, make sure the door's locked, because I don't want to leave John's house unlocked. So she goes back to check the door. I go out to my vehicle, and I hear this god-awful scream.
Well, there are 63 races of grays. So most people only think there's one race, and when you say grays, it's a misinformation. There's 63 races. Out of those, one race is a negative extraterrestrial. And what I do is I group them in the negative and the positive. The positive wish to see humanity ascend.
What is your name? My name is Anthony.
Are you ready to unravel the mysteries of this podcast? Join us only on Talking with the Source, live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and on all podcast listening platforms.
What's going on, everybody? This is AJ Capasso from Talking with the Source. I'm here with my girlfriend, Tammy. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing well. We are missing Chris right at the moment, but it's okay because we have a special return of somebody that we are very excited to return. His name is Jonathan Keyworth of JK47 Paranormal Investigations. So, John, you can bring yourself forward, brother. And
Whoa! I wish I had fireworks behind me.
It's been a while. How you been, brother?
Dude, I've been on a journey, man. A lot's happened, and I don't want to get into it on the air, but I battled a lot of stuff, and I finally got my sign to come back. If you go to Targeting with the JK47, you'll see that the members are 666. That's the first time I've ever seen that number, like in a long time, like in 3 years. I've never seen that number represent itself on its own. So I took it as the sign, and in the angel numbers, 666 means it's time to wake up to your higher spiritual truth. So, yeah, dude, I'm back, and I should be starting hopefully in a couple weeks. I got to get re-tuned, re-grounded, and figure everything out. So, but yeah, JK's back.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it, brother. I'm glad to have you back. I know me and Chris were missing you, and now we have a new host with us, my girlfriend Tammy. So we're excited.
Hi, Tammy.
about that.
Hi.
So, but dude, I tell you what, we're gonna sit down today with Daniel Cohoon. He's a seasoned explorer of the unknown with a lifetime of experience in the paranormal research, investigation, and spirituality. Daniel shares his profound journey into the realms of magic and mystical, drawing on his spiritual gifts that guide him through the unexplained. So I wanted to bring forth our guest, Daniel Cohoon.
Daniel! Let me bring him up. There we go.
Hello.
How are you,
buddy?
man?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. So first, Daniel, what I want you to do is shout out your podcast that we're about to talk about, because you have an amazing show. We were able to come on it. We're very grateful for that, and we just want you to shout it out and tell all the viewers about it.
Well, I'm the host and creator of Magickal Journey podcast. It is a podcast primarily dealing with the paranormal on all levels. We occasionally will branch off to talk about some topics such as an interesting missing 411. But My primary goal is to always focus on paranormal and spiritual activity. I am a very big believer in the fact that they kind of coincide with each other. They walk side by side with each other, which is kind of obvious to me, to be honest with you. However, with that said, Magickal Journey is also a brand as well, essentially. So, and I'll expand on that coming up in the future, but I'm putting that out there for you guys now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, tell me, when was the like, how long has it been now for Magickal Journey that you've been on the air?
I literally started like the first week in August of last year. It's been a very short period of time.
Wow,
really
but I tell you what, the growth has been amazing, and it's so good to see.
It really is. I'm very fortunate. And the things that are coming up, I really wish I could spill the beans on some of the stuff coming up. I have names coming up and interviews coming up that I'm really excited about, and I feel like will launch us greatly forward. So, yeah,
That is awesome. Well, I'm so excited to see that. That is absolutely great. You deserve it, my friend. You deserve it. You work very hard at what you do, and I'm very proud to have been on your show, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate both of you for coming on my show, actually. It definitely, getting to know you guys, getting to know the paranormal community has been a real big plus to doing this. So,
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I love about doing this. You get to meet so many vast different people, different personalities from around the world that do this work, and it's absolutely amazing to see like what they have, like what they've come up with, the way that they do things, and it's absolutely amazing. It gives you new ideas,
Exactly. Some of my favorite interviews are people who do investigation, and part of that is because these guys really have an open mind about breaking their own neck. They literally just they go out, they do some crazy stuff to get evidence. And
Yeah.
I always find that, I find that very interesting. Probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for right now, and I'm putting feelers. I just started putting feelers out today for it, is people who either have vivid recollection of past lives, who have evidence of their past lives, or can connect some way with the past life experience. I think this is an area that's really interesting, especially when it involves children.
Yeah.
I've heard several stories of kids who will say, one of them I saw not too long ago, a little boy who essentially we believe was unalived at the day of 9/11. So
I've seen that one too.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, his story is incredible, and there seems to be a lot of young people coming forward that have these memories, but there's a lot of adults too. There's a lot of adults.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's tons. There's like thousands of people, and it's crazy because it's like, how do we not think of this like that there's past lives when we have all this evidence of people who actually have looked down the rabbit hole and actually found out, what they're seeing is true.
Personally, my own daughter was actually a case file study for the Virginia Tech University because she connected with a past life at 2.5 years old, and they followed her until she was 6 years old. We actually ended up finding the family that connected her. That was and now she's 22 years old, and she has, now that she's 22, she has less memories than she did, but back then they were just constant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that derives into the way television and everything is derived. And when we're younger, we really don't pay too much attention to that. You're more concerned with the person or a voice that you hear. And I truly do believe that children have that aspect of innocence, and they hear things that normal people wouldn't hear.
They do. They absolutely do.
That was my, I was on the fence about the whole reincarnation thing until my own kid went through it, and then it just changed my perspective entirely. I was faced with it. I had no choice.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it also goes with donor organ recipients. All of a sudden, their behaviors change, and they have different cravings than they used to have because of the organ change. Because another person's organs in your body now. If you think about it, it's putting a puzzle piece from another puzzle in there that fits.
Yeah.
And now they love, I don't know, cherry ice cream or something, and they didn't like that before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so wild to think about. But please, Daniel, go ahead.
It's very possible too. They may have memories that are attached to that particular person's organs as well. The memories from lifetimes of are literally encoded into our DNA. So we have memories from our grandparents, from our parents, from our great grandparents, going all the way back. This is one of the reasons why people will experience things like deja vu and so forth, is it's actually accessing the memories encoded into our DNA of family members, ancestors, possibly even some of our own past life stuff, definitely. But that is kind of where I'm a little concerned about the idea of organ donation in a way, is that's an aspect that they don't tell you about when you're about to receive an organ, because it's not really part of their understanding of the process. So
Yeah,
all
exactly.
this, yeah.
I
So
think
all of a sudden,
I think they're on the line,
Yeah.
they don't want to go above that line, say, hey, this is from a good person or a bad person, because
oh yeah,
I mean, I believe that, that is true. If there's a bad person that you get a body part from, maybe you'll start acting a little more on your emotions than you would if you hadn't had that.
That's very
It's weird.
possible.
It's weird that you say that, because when my father passed, I was going to donate his organs to other people, and I told them, I was like, yeah, under one condition, I want to meet the people and I want to tell them about my dad, and they wouldn't let me do that, and I was like, that's really weird. Like, I wonder why, I thought it was really awkward, but I mean, maybe it's because of confidentiality, the HIPAA laws, all that type of stuff that we have here,
Right.
but. I mean, still, I just thought it was very weird considering what we're talking about,
Right. It's definitely the laws are set up to protect people. I get that. However, I know if I was a parent and my child was getting, an organ from somebody, I would kind of want to have some clue about it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I would, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, tell us, I know you have spiritual gifts. Talk a little bit about it, please.
So early on, one of the things that I recognized and learned the hard way was the ability to read images, imprints on objects by touch. I learned very quickly also that I was an empath. I remember going into the city as a child and just being absolutely miserable, because you would walk through so many different areas where people had left, emotional energy and other things. And I never understood what was going on. They actually diagnosed me at one point as being bipolar because of all of the abrupt changes that would go on when I was out in public. but of course, I learned very quickly as an adult that that was not the case. One of the things that I've learned over time is the ability to be able to tap in and read people and places through electronics, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've had several engagements that way where I've tapped into things. The ability to be able to see and potentially at times communicate with deceased is definitely there, and of course the connection with being the spiritual world, working with the celestials and other beings of light, has been very much a part of my adult life.
Now tell me, when you receive it, go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Those are the main ones. I mean, there are others, but that's where I'm pretty much focused on most of the time.
So, Daniel, this is a question we ask every one of our guests. All right. To your recollection, what is the first paranormal experience that you experienced in your life? The very first one. Do you remember that? Where you were like, what is going on?
The first one was probably when I was, gosh, I can't remember how old I was exactly, but I had an old, I'm going to be dating myself with this. I had an old television, it didn't have a remote. It had a little knob you turn. We had about 3 channels.
Right. That's all right. I'm there. I'm that old too. That's good.
Yeah. We had about 3 or 4 stations there. And one night I was sitting in my room watching television.
Oh, me too.
And that sucker started like flipping channels by itself.
Oh wow.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, this is weird. This is very weird. Then not long after that, I mean, it had to, I can't remember exactly when, how far after that it was. There was one night where it went to in between stations, and I was looking at somebody's kitchen, a family sitting in their kitchen. It was not a television show either, I could tell, because it was very raw, very just like they were having normal family interaction and so forth. But there were things that was just like, it wasn't polished television.
Huh.
And
that is creepy.
Yeah. At one point, even one of the kids belched, and when he did, the look on his mom's face was kind of like it was very spontaneous. So you could tell that that whatever I was seeing was happening in real time, or assumingly real time.
You know, I always wondered about those old TVs because the frequency that they're on, I always wondered if, like, you know, like look at Marcello Bacci. I don't know if you ever heard of Marcello Bacci, but he would use shortwave radios to communicate. You know what I'm talking about, Daniel. And I always wondered, like, with those shortwave radios, if they would connect to the old type of TVs with that frequency, and we'd be able to tap into either a parallel universe or a parallel something. You know what I mean?
There were several times when I would get voices coming through if I didn't have the television on a channel, just very quickly. But as far as like, that was the only time I ever got like a visual experience out of it, and that was so weird to me. I was like, am I really watching somebody having dinner right now?
Yeah, exactly. I would have freaked out myself.
And that's before baby monitors. That's before the video, you know, with the baby monitors and stuff. That's way before that. That, like, baby monitors weren't even a thing then. You know, I remember those times, and I've seen so many photos on online with those old analog TVs with faces that would appear with the TV off, and And like I told you when I was on your show, that's an avenue I want to explore more. I think there's something in that analog frequency.
Definitely. The the number of experiences that begin to happen over a period of time, from I would say age 7 till age 12 in particular, was really kind of almost overwhelming at times, to be honest with you. And it was not just me that would experience, like my stepmother kept complaining about walking past my room at night and hearing somebody walking across the floor. But when she opened the door, I was totally knocked out, and there was nobody in there. The lights were, yeah.
That's the worst. That's the worst. I had something similar happen when I was younger, so I totally feel your mom on that one. That had to be freaky.
Yeah, she would hear people talking in my room, and we're talking about somebody who belonged to a very radical version of Pentecostalism. So she was not okay with this.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Oh yeah, it totally freaked her out. We'd be sitting in the kitchen, and she would say something that was kind of crude or whatever, which was very common with her. And a picture would fall off the wall or whatever, and she would freak out. She'd be like, she literally, she would tell me all the time, "You are not natural." Yeah. She would tell me that frequently, and I would just look at her and go, "And
what do you tell her now?" Yeah.
The thing of it is when you deal with, and I grew up in an area where religion in particular was really, it was a dominant force in everybody's life, and they, it was that time period too. So when you live in a society where they oppress a lot of things, what I've never understood is, like, you believe in some pretty radical thoughts of people, being executed and resurrected and all these kinds of things, but you can't grasp something like this. Okay.
Yeah, right. No, man, I totally agree. Like, I've had so many near life experiences in Iraq, and just I always know that there's somebody around me. It's not your time. You gotta keep moving forward. So, but as far as death goes, I'm not afraid of it. I know I'll still be there afterwards. And that's my journey, is leaving this legacy for my kids, if they choose to go down this path, that they'll be able to talk to me. That's the one thing I want to do. So.
Right.
So tell me, Daniel, what was one of the most memorable readings that you've ever done?
I would actually say the most memorable one was actually done on me. Most of the readings that I've done have been pretty, I don't want to say mundane. I do remember one in particular, because there was a lady who always, she worked with me. She found out that I could take her keys and get images off of it and so forth. She handed me her keys one day, because she always, that was her, when it was slow in the restaurant we worked at, that was her thing. She wanted to know what I would pick up on today. And I gave her a very deep graphic description of her grandmother's house. Wow. And she was like, "There's no way that you can know this stuff. How do you know this stuff?" And and I told her, I said, we've done this so many times by now. You haven't figured it out. There's not a trick to it. I'm literally reading the impressions off of your keys.
Yeah.
But the detailed
people think it's like a trick, you know?
Right. They do. That's definitely one of the ones that really sticks out in my mind. There's times when I've worked with, because at one point I had come in contact with a past life regressionist who worked somewhat with William Cooper, who was an author of a book called Behold the Pale Horse. It talks a lot about alien interaction with human beings and conspiracies and so forth. This particular past life regressionist and I worked together on a couple of times with abductees, and there were some things that came out in that when I was reading them that I found very interesting. Being able to see flashes of, the inside of wherever they were at. I'm convinced that it was probably an underground facility. But yeah, that was another one that kind of it stands out as something that I remember pretty detailed in some ways. Some of it I've forgotten over time, and I'm not sure where that forgetfulness comes from. Actually, I think sometimes the memories are wiped. But yeah.
You ever hear that ringing in your ears, like out of the blue? Like they say that's a download or something.
I get those frequently. I do too.
Yeah. Now, what's your opinion on them? Like, what's your opinion on what they are?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes it is definitely in the process of a download. Sometimes it's a warning.
Okay.
There have been times when something will happen and it may be something that seems really trivial, but it really catches my attention, and I'll get the ringing sensation, and then later on I connect it with another event that kind of makes me go, oh, okay, this was trying to tell me at this time that was going to happen, and it happened.
I always look at the clock when it starts ringing. I try to read the numbers, and it's weird. They're always in sequence, or they're all the same, and it's really weird when that happens.
Yeah, the download parts are probably the more frequent of them. But yeah, when I get a ringing that says, hey, you need to be alert, you need to be aware. Those are the ones that are really important. Because you want to know what's going on. You want to know your surroundings very quickly because something is about to happen. And oddly enough, it usually does not happen directly around me. That's the thing of it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Wow.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember any one instance, like where you heard a ringing and something happened, or?
So one of them in particular was Katrina. When Katrina was starting to form, I kept getting really incredible, just prolonged periods of ringing. I actually wound up having a seizure.
Oh, geez.
As about 2 weeks before Katrina hit land. And during the seizure, I could feel myself underwater. I felt like I was drowning.
Wow.
And I was trying to fight my way out of it. I remember that very vividly. And I was actually at work when this was going on too, which is started a whole can of worms with my bosses too, because they were like, I don't know what happened, but something is going on there.
They got their employee season on the ground, and I can imagine how they're feeling. And all of a sudden, you pop out of it, and you're like, "No, listen, I'm underwater. Don't worry."
Right.
I can totally see where you're coming from. Yeah, that must have been a scary moment though for you, because I couldn't imagine having a seizure and then all of a sudden coming out of it and during it feeling like that you're underwater the whole time. Like that had to be a scary feeling.
Oh yeah, even like when I could tell when I was starting to come to. I actually felt water dripping off of me. I fully expected whenever, but they had called the paramedics, of course, because it happened at work, and I was down for a good 10, 15 minutes.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so that's usually at that point when they start worrying about medical conditions being, serious
Yeah.
repercussions from the seizures.
Yeah.
So they called the ambulance, and I was still feeling like I thoroughly expected to look down and see my clothes wet uh, at one point, and I looked down and I was totally dry. I was like, something's weird here. Something's really
Wow.
weird. And then, of course, a
Yeah,
couple of
man.
weeks later, we're seeing, the news coverage of Katrina and, the bodies and so forth. It was kind of rough,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Like being an empath, I know that we feel the environment, we feel the changes, we feel spirit, and
Mhm.
I just can't imagine that level of empathy. It just amazes me. I don't know if I want to get to that level, AJ. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel drowning. So, my hat's off to you, Daniel, for having the courage to
Yeah.
get to that level, man.
For real.
I veil 24/7 now. Like literally, it's very like if I'm in this room at times I won't veil. Uh, it was definitely kind of because the way that the headgear is not allowed on my job, so I had to go through HR to get permission to veil at work. And when they asked me, why, fortunately, I was able to tell them. I was like, you know what, I'm Christo-pagan. It's part of our our choice as a Christo-pagan to veil or not veil, and I chose to veil. And so they were like, so it's a religious thing. I was like, well, yeah, partly it is. Um, and I wasn't going to tell them that part of it is also for protection. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, that's awesome though. A lot of people wouldn't have the courage to even do that. So that's amazing that you did.
Definitely.
Oh, they were going
So
to fight me on it at first, and then I showed them pictures of my altar, and they were like, "Okay."
yeah. 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 They're like, oh yeah, he's serious.
So, what about
um,
family, Daniel? Do you have a family, wife, kids? Do
um,
you have
I do
sons that you
not.
pass this on to, or?
I do not. I had at any one time 16 brothers and sisters. They all mass produced like the rest of my family. So I just kind of felt like, you know what, we got enough. I'm not
yeah.
going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
All
We got
right,
enough.
no,
There
that's
you go.
cool, man.
That's all right. Hey, that's awesome though. I mean, at least you have a big family,
Right. Now, my eldest brother, we know for a fact because he was at my mother's house, uh, staying there with them for a period of time when he was visited at one point. But my eldest brother definitely had MIB experiences. We know that. He claimed to be in touch with extraterrestrials. Uh,
Oh,
so, and uh, Derry was also a savant. He had schizophrenia, so it was very questionable
yeah. Yeah.
in a way. What do
Yeah.
I mean by Christo-pagan? So I believe in the divinity of Christ. I consider myself a Christian, but I also believe that God created heaven and earth, and all things on the earth are put here for our use. And just as food is put here for for nourishment and feeding, plants, stones, all things on earth put here for our use in some way or another. And I believe that they all have a significant part to do in our lives. So I incorporate what some people would call a form of witchcraft, which I I don't particularly care for that term
No,
so
there's
much.
energy in everything.
Right,
We're all made of that same energy, and I believe that paganism, people think it's like Satanist stuff, but it's not. It's the belief in energy, that we're all made of the same energy, and sometimes you need more of this energy from this plant or this rock, and to help balance yourself, and I was a Catholic, like
right,
full on blown Catholic, and I found out that that's not true, that this was put onto me, and that they were controlling me, and I found out about source and how energy works, and no, that's what my guides told me. I've heard it through my spirit box many times, through AJ's spirit box, and I believe we're all connected. We just operate on different frequency and vibration, going into the quantum science thing of it.
right. Yeah, and it's very interesting because part of the theology that I adhere to believes that God is both male and female, and was actually incarnated. Both sides of God, the male and female, was incarnated in the flesh through the universal mother, the mother of God, Mary, and through her son Jesus. So they both represent the aspects of Father God and Mother God.
Yeah.
So and you'd be surprised how many Catholics turn to witchcraft before it's over with, by the way. Just saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know a lot.
Yeah.
I know a lot. Now I wanted to ask you, Daniel, for your gifts, when you get an impression, do you how do you see it? Do you see it in your mind's eye? Do you see it as a flash image? Like, how do you see it?
It can come in many ways. Usually it comes through the mind's eye. Occasionally I get very vivid flashes of images. It really depends on how the energy is coming through and the extent that the energy is coming through sometimes. Yeah, that's one of the things that
is it immediate, or does it you have to hold it for a little bit, or like once it touches your hand, you're seeing stuff?
Usually it starts happening immediately. My first experiences with it was when I was much younger, and I would touch the metal doors or a doorknob going in someplace, and I would immediately get, a flash of something, and I'd be like, whoa, that was cool. What was that? Or I would pick up images sometimes that wasn't so nice, and I'd be like, ooh, I don't like that.
I don't like this.
Exactly.
It's like black licorice. Nobody likes black licorice. Go away.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you have to, you kind of, over time, I learned how to protect myself from some of that stuff. But, as a kid, you kind of have to wonder sometimes, am I really losing my mind here? What's going on? Yeah, there many times it happens like spontaneously, very quickly. There are times when it really depends too the material.
Okay.
Metal definitely is a quicker conduit than other things. Cloth seems to be one of the weaker ones for me. I'm not able to pick up impressions as quickly with cloth.
Well, that makes sense on a quantum scale. A harder metal is more vibrant, has a higher vibration, and cloth is lower, so it's not going to speak to you as clearly. Scientifically, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting challenges with some of that. And I'm not quite sure at this point either if it's always impressions or if it's actually, plants seem to communicate with me quite a bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's all about the electricity, and
Yeah.
AJ, you can vouch for this. Look, when I was on their first show, like one of my theories was the electricity in the human body. That's
Oh,
why
yeah.
metal is more conceptible, and which you vouch for. You get clearer visions, sharper visions when it's in metal or plants. Plants are just the same as humans. If we drink salt water, we die. If you spray salt water on a plant, it dies. So
Right.
that was my whole basis of
Well,
getting rid of horrible entities in houses.
Well,
The
think
salt
about
water.
this too. Think about all the technology that they've learned about plants. You know what I mean? Like that plants can feel, hear, see, like have emotion, like all that type of stuff, just by the way that we talk to them. So it's
Right.
amazing to see the
Or
livingness
they
and how
even give
smart
off their own
they are.
frequency. Have you seen that guy on TikTok that hooks the little clips up to the plants and they're
Oh yeah,
sending out signals and
yeah,
stuff? Like it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Playing music and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. Right. They even respond as if they have a consciousness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people really take for granted a lot of things, but you have to understand, all things have a language. They all have a language, and they all have, crystals. I work with crystals quite a bit. This room is just inundated with crystals. And people will say a lot of times, you got some really pretty rocks here. And I'm like, I have to tell them, they kind of get offended by that sometimes.
Yeah, no shit.
And they, of course, I get this look like offended. You're talking about a rock,
yeah.
I don't allow people in this room very often because of that now. Plus, when I'm working on, when I'm home, I'm usually working on my podcast or I'm doing research or something in here all the time. All the time.
Now, tell me, do you do private readings for people, or do you just like do readings as you go along? Like, how does it work for you? Do you have a clientele? Like,
Currently I kind of put a little bit of a, I guess I've kind of gone into a little hiatus with that in a sense. So I'm just now starting to get back to the point where I'm advertising on my website that I'm doing readings again. Primarily the readings that I'm wanting to focus on now are card readings, just because they tend to be a little less invasive sometimes. And some people get a little weirded out whenever you go, let me see your ring or let me see your car keys, and all of a sudden you start deep diving into their life like that. They just kind of go, whoa, wait a minute,
Yeah.
You use an oracle deck or do you use a full-on tarot deck?
I use both.
Yeah, I have an oracle deck. I love my oracle deck.
Yeah.
I use Kyle Gray's angel cards, angel guide cards.
Those are very good. I have so many decks of cards. I usually, if I'm doing an oracle reading on somebody, I usually intuitively pick which deck I'm going to use and take it from there.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then I'm starting to explore other forms of readings as well and see what happens with that. But there's pendulums. I use pendulums for a host of things, for readings, for spirit communication and so forth. So, yeah.
Wow, that is awesome.
What about the dowsing rods? Do you like Do you believe in those?
You know what? I believe there are some people that are very gifted with them. I also believe that, I've scanned TikTok and I've seen people saying that they're using them and they're really misusing them.
Really?
Dowsing rods are they're very fickle in a sense. I mean, you have to know how to use them very properly, in order for them to actually work. I have seen people like rig them up to where they're freestanding and use them that way. Kind of interesting when that happens. Because there's no way, I mean, you're not in contact with it. Something is actually moving those things at that point.
No, I got a pair just sitting here. It's part of my beginner set when I first started.
Right. Now I do know I've seen video, and I actually had this lady on one of my first, like she was in, I think in the first 10 episodes or so, she was somewhere in there, where she uses a metal, what do you call it? The scales, metal scales. And she has one video where she has a child spirit that was playing with it. And it was just like going back and forth like this the whole time. And she's very much one of those people that's a proponent of using metal objects for communicating with spirits, especially children. But I thought that was very interesting. The scales moving back and forth like that.
That was awesome.
See, I don't know what to think about them, because I met a guy at the Mayhem event down at the Abbey the last time, and he used it like he would be called by the FBI and stuff, and he was able to find bodies and stuff using dowsing rods.
Right.
Like the FBI would call him and say, "We can't find this body. We know it's in this area," and he would always be right on it. And it's really weird. And he handmade them himself, it was just crazy. And he has all the evidence to back that up, like all the case numbers and stuff. And
yeah, I've seen people use coat hangers and all kinds of things to make them. And actually, somebody I was talking to recently said that they had a tutorial on their website. I wish I could remember who it was now. I've talked to a lot of people lately. A lot of people.
Think? Yeah. You're busy every week, man.
Yeah.
Every week. And now I'm getting ready to start recording the next few weeks coming up here are covered on recorded videos, but I'm starting to line people up for the next group of
I know mine's
videos.
in the next 3 weeks. So you said it's going to be like 5 weeks. I was like, all right.
Right. And then I've got lives booked all the way into March now. So
you're a busy man, dude. You're a busy man. I'm so grateful to have you on our show. I'm glad. Thanks for taking time for us. Yeah, man.
I'm glad to be here. I'm really glad that you are back in
I think
you're back in the seat. You're back in the seat where you belong.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, because I've been trying to tell him that for months.
I've watched several videos now of the work that you do, and I gotta tell you, like there was some of them that I was like, if I hadn't just watched that, and sometimes I'll watch them 2 or 3 times, I'd be like, if I hadn't just watched that, I really not sure that I would have been able to wrap my head around somebody telling me about what you do. Especially whenever you go back and you ask them the question 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. I try to do the same questions every week to see if we get different responses, and they're always the same. And I think it pisses the spirit off. I ask him the same question, so I try to come up with some new ones every now and then.
Right. One of the things that I find very amusing about people's reaction to these kinds of things, like when I tell them some of the stuff that I do, especially working with the celestials and light beings, they kind of raise an eyebrow and they go, "Wow, have you ever heard of necromancy before?" And I'm like, yeah, I have, but that's not this. This is something different. Yeah. Like, and they're like, "Oh, wow." And I've even shown a couple of the naysayers, videos of me doing dictations before, and they're like, "This is just weird and creepy. I'm not sure what's happening here." I'm like,
yeah.
I don't either. I just have the gift.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't explain it.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate the time that you gave us, man, honestly. And we'd love to have you back on again to get some free time down the road for sure.
Definitely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And please keep up the good work, man, because we love what you do. We love the podcast. It's honestly amazing what you do. So please keep it up and please keep killing it.
Absolutely.
Well, we love you, Daniel. We got your back, buddy.
Definitely, man.
Definitely. Right, Thank you.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
So what'd you think, bro?
Dude, I mean,
and Mrs. Bro.
Dude. I tell you what, it's good to be on the other side of the interview instead of being on the other side of the interview like Daniel had me on, you know what I mean? Or Daniel had you on. Because,
I've been on that same
it's
side.
always good to be the interviewer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I got to ask him the questions I want to ask.
I know, right? I know. You get in the conversation on the podcast and you want to like talk about, like the interviewer side of things, and it's like, dang it, you can't because you're supposed to be the one getting interviewed.
Well, that's the way you get them on your show. You got to be like, okay, now I've answered your questions. You got to come on my show to answer.
Yeah, that's it. That's how it works. But anyway, man, it's been absolutely awesome to have you back. I'm so happy that you're going to be back on every week now. So happy that you got the sign that you got, man. I've been telling you for months, and I'm just so happy it finally came. I know patience has sucked, but it's one thing that we have to learn, I guess, so.
Yeah, no, that's all it is. Time's irrelevant. You just have to be in the right space and time.
Everything
everything has to align, If you're out of an alignment, you have to wait,
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. Well, to all our viewers and everyone who supports us, thank you so much for watching another episode of Talking with the Source. I'm AJ Capasso with Tammy and JK47. See you guys soon.